You're listening to the Public Health Entrepreneurs Podcast with your host, Dr. Charlotte Huntley. Greetings, everyone, and thank you for joining me on this episode. On this podcast, we explore topics of interest for professionals like you at the intersection of public health and entrepreneurship. My name is Dr. Charlotte Huntley, and I'm really happy that you've decided to join me on this episode. I'm a public health entrepreneur with over 25 years of experience in healthcare and in public health, and I've also been a podcaster since 2017. Now, I'm excited to tell you about our exclusive workshop that's coming up very soon. Are you ready to make your side hustle your full-time gig? Well, this is for consultants and entrepreneurs who are juggling a full-time job alongside their business. Is your goal to leave your current job and work for yourself full-time? Or does the path to making that transition seem unclear or impossible? You're not alone. I've been there and I've successfully made the leap. Over the years, I've guided countless professionals like you to become full-time entrepreneurs, and now it's your turn. We're preparing a 5-day game-changing workshop to help you explore your options and develop a personalized strategy to achieve this entrepreneurial milestone. Don't miss this opportunity to transform your side hustle into your main hustle. Now, this is how you can secure your spot. If you are already receiving podcast emails from us, if we send you an email that lets you know every time a new episode is coming up or coming out, then perfect. Keep an eye on your inbox for priority registration details. Also, you can check the link in this episode description for registration details as well. So the podcast app that you're listening to right now, there's a description with this episode that will have a link to the registration page for the workshop. Your entrepreneurial future is waiting. Let's make it happen together. On today's episode, we're going to continue and kind of wrap up our discussion on networking strategies that will help you prepare for your next conference. Be sure to listen to episode 53, where I covered why it's important to set networking goals for your next conference. And then check out episode 54, where I discussed strategies that you should take action on before you attend the conference. And then in episode 55, I discussed strategies to take action on during the conference. Now, in this final episode of this mini series, this is episode 56, let's talk about your networking strategies and things that you should be doing or taking action on after your next conference. Okay? So again, I have them numbered, but not in order of importance. So here's number 1, follow up with new contacts within a week. Now, I'm going to pause there for a second because we all know that we should follow up with these contacts, but that is sometimes the most difficult thing to do. I'll bet all of you can go to the closet and look for your bag from the recent conference you attended. If you pull it out, it's probably got some random business cards shuffled in the bottom, or you've got brochures or information from a table that you stopped by or someone that you met, and that information is sitting there, but you've never done your follow-up. Now, I'm not picking on you. It happens, right? There are several things that we can do to help ensure that we're following up within a week, but I'll come back to that a little bit later. But for number 1, I'm just going to say follow up with new contacts within a week. All right. So number 2, connect on professional social media platforms. Again, I'm partial to LinkedIn, and I think that would be my first. And if you didn't have any other platform, that would be the only one I would have you focus on. But connecting with the people you've met on the social media platforms is my number 2 strategy for you. So number 3, share relevant resources discussed during conversations. So if you had a conversation with someone and you were like, oh, we have this resource, I'd love to be able to share it with you. And you're like, oh, yes, I'd like to know more about that. And you promise to send them something, make sure you follow up with them. Or maybe it's someone you were going to connect them with or whatever it is, but follow up and share any relevant resources that you talked about with these individuals during the conference. Number 4, write a summary of key learnings and connections. So I'm going to implement here. I'm going to add something here for you. I think that the best time to write these summaries are at the end of each day. And you may think, oh, there's so much going on. I don't have time for that. I get it. Sometimes you can do it at the end of the day, or sometimes I'm an early morning person. So sometimes I will have time set aside first thing in the morning before I take off to do everything else. While I'm having my breakfast and coffee or whatever, I will go over and summarize the previous day while a lot of this is still fresh. So that's just me, but that's a suggestion of a way that you can possibly do that. I will even tie that into my number one point, was follow up on new contacts within a week. If you have this little time to review your key learning and connections and all that, to write that summary of key learnings and connections and follow up with contacts, if you in that time at the end of each day or at the beginning of the day, that's a great time to connect or follow up. Those new contacts, you can go ahead and connect with them on LinkedIn. Send them a message while everything's fresh. Oh, we met at the conference yesterday. It was so great to chat with you about whatever. Add that message in there to keep yourself top of mind for them as well. And then it's already setting the presence to continue the connection, the conversation. Okay. All right, let's keep going. Number 5, implement new ideas or practices learned at the conference. So there's all these takeaways. Now, from the information that we're learning, you may have, now we're talking about separate from the scientific information, whatever it is that you're learning. That's great. But what if you learn something new at the conference, and you will if you're paying attention, about how you might want to network a little differently next time around? Make sure that you're implementing these new ideas and practices that you learned at the conference. Maybe it's a software, an app. Maybe you had physical cards and you saw someone that used a digital card and you thought, oh, that's really nice. I want to start using that. Go ahead and implement that so that it's in place for the next conference or your next engagement activity. Okay, number 6, consider collaborative opportunities with new contacts. So those people that you made a note with, you thought they'd be really great to collaborate with them and to meet with them, because often you'll have very kind of superficial level conversations with people that you meet at a conference just because of the sheer nature of everything that's going on. So you may meet someone and engage just enough to know that you really do want to get to know them better and to continue the discussion. So you also may meet with someone and think, oh, wow, there is an opportunity. There may be an opportunity for us to collaborate. And maybe you both, you know how it is. You have that moment, you're talking a little bit, you're thinking, oh, wow, we need to continue talking because there may be a way that we could work together. There may be an opportunity to collaborate. Those people will probably get like a little star on the back of the card for me so that I'll know these are people that you really want to maybe set up that Zoom meeting to follow up after the conference. If you've kind of considered a collaborative opportunity or you've kind of identified that, that's a good person to follow up in that way. So maybe it starts with an email reminding, of what that collaborative idea was or whatever that was that you engaged in the brief conversation with. And then, ask them for the Zoom meeting or something along those lines. So number 7, share conference insights with your team or organization. On my other podcast, Public Health Epidemiology Conversations podcast, I've often shared my takeaways and insights from public health conferences as episodes on the podcast. And they always return back in multiple folds. I think you may not have a podcast. I'm not suggesting starting a podcast. But if you do have a podcast, you can think, if this is good alignment for my audience, do I share these takeaways and insights with my podcast? It's an idea if you have one, something to consider. But certainly with your team or your organization, if you have, depending on your team structure, if you have other consultants that work with you, employees, sharing those insights and whatever those findings were is a good idea, a good practice. And regards to your networking, it's great to share it with your team as well, because those are things that you will do, you can incorporate more collaboratively into your team. So I will be taking my team to a conference about 2 months now from the time of this recording. And it will be the first time that I'm taking the whole team to this large conference. So we share takeaways from our mastermind retreats and the networking tips that we share there. And we talk about it as a team to see what we're going to incorporate and put into place at our next conference. So sharing insights with your team is an important thing to do. You're just not keeping that to yourself, but you'll find that your team members will sometimes have some great ideas and things that they can add on. And they'll also be watching out for things at the conference that they can bring back and share with you. Okay, number 8, plan how to maintain new relationships long-term. You can't pre-plan everything, right? But this is after the conference. you can decide at that point, how do you want to maintain this new relationship? And maybe it's not, you don't know how long-term it will be. And maybe it's just that this is a really interesting person and you don't know where it may or may not go, but you want to stay in touch. So I think that, for example, if you may decide that I want to connect with them on LinkedIn and follow their posts and engage with their posts and get to know them through their thought leadership that they're demonstrating on LinkedIn. That's one strategy of how you want to keep in touch with them long term. And then you can see as you get to know them and you get to know more about them from how they're posting and engaging, you'll know when that right time to invite them to, a meeting of some sort or move it to the next step. Okay. I guess I'll just add here is just make sure that you are pacing the relationship process. So sometimes people try to go too hard, too fast, and it's too much. And it's just like go back to dating scenarios, when that other person is just doing too much too fast, it just makes you want to push back. Remember that in the professional setting. You can be really excited and also come on a little too strong. And I think we've all done that, have the best intentions and it come across a little too strong. So just pace yourself so that you are maintaining that relationship long term. Number 9, reflect on your networking goals and assess your success. So we talked about this back in the earlier episode when I talked to you about why you should have the networking goal. And this is why at this moment you're after the conference. Now you can look back on what your goal was and then what did you accomplish that goal? How close did you get? What worked? What didn't work? Do an assessment and over that overall process for yourself and see what comes up. What worked well? Keep doing what worked well. What didn't work, where you could improve, see what ideas you have. Do it while it's fresh, right after the conference and things are top of mind so that it will prepare you. You're ready as you prepare for your next conference. And that perfectly segues into number 10, which is start planning for the next conference or event. You will likely have ideas about where you'd like to attend, what type of conference you'd like to attend. Everything's really fresh on your mind at that point. And you can start planning, at least jot down some ideas and notes about what you have for the next conference. I really encourage you to review your specific networking goals, like, again, the number of connections you wanted to make or target individuals or organizations, and compare your goals to the outcome and determine whether or not attending this conference was successful for you. That would be your definition of success for this conference. Make your own notes about what worked well, and how you might be able to improve next time. And I, again, recommend doing this soon after the conference while everything is fresh on your mind. Now, I will add one more thing that you may have some kind of reaction to me with this suggestion, but just hear me out. I like to have a buffer day after the conference. So, or I should say buffer time after the conference. So if your conference ends on a Thursday, for example, I will often try to not travel back home on Friday or not travel back home Thursday night the same day. I try to at least stay the night and maybe use Friday as the travel day. And so what that means is when the conference ends, if the last day of your conference is that Thursday and say it ends at 5:00, then everything's gone. There's no more activities happening. I will often try to stay wherever I'm staying that night, have a dinner, and use that quiet time to make my notes and do that reflection and begin to take some of those initial steps. And then as I travel back the next day, sometimes if it's a flight that's, a long flight, I use some of that travel time in the airport to, make my notes and review over some things. When I return back to my normal setting, as most of us, it's often we hit the ground running. We're focused on what we have to do next and what's, in front of us and all those things. So sometimes I will try to put a buffer day when I return back home to have a day in the office before I return back to everything else. But I find that hardly ever works for me because once I'm in that place, my mind is already shifted. So I try to put that buffer time at the place that the conference ends or have a full travel day and use some of that travel time. Sometimes I will kind of reward myself. So in that same example of Thursday, if it ends on Thursday, if I can have a dinner, relaxing time and use that Thursday evening to do all of my follow-up activities and make my notes and do all those things, then when I'm traveling on that Friday, then it's truly a free travel day for me. I can watch a movie or play games as I'm on the airplane or whatever. I don't have to do any air quotes work, but as a backup, sometimes when I start on a Thursday evening, my mind is freely thinking and I make those notes. Then just having my brain free on that Friday travel, I have other ideas that come to mind and I can just use that to brainstorm and collect my thoughts. And then when I arrive home and I'm back in the setting and I don't have to worry about trying to fight the distraction of, okay, the next thing when I get into town, no, I got to wrap up from the conference. I've already got everything in place and ready. So if you're able to start planning your travel and have that buffer time at the end of the travel, you can get a lot of these after the conference strategies. Take action on those during that time. I found that worked for me, so I'm sharing that with you. All right. I would love to know how these strategies work for you. So feel free to share your experience and takeaways with us. You can catch us on social media. You can respond to any email that you receive from us on these episodes and just let us know what you intend to use, how helpful it was. And then if you try in any of these strategies, let us know how it worked out for you. We'd love to hear from you. Okay. In addition to the workshop that I talked about at the top of the episode, I want to remind you about our mastermind group program. It is best suited for established public health entrepreneurs, but we work together online and we also gather together in person, which is magical. For a 2-day retreat, we do this twice a year. Enrollment only happens twice a year for this program, in June and in December. And enrollment is only open to people who have submitted an application. So if you would like to learn more about our mastermind group program, then please visit our website, which is publichealthentrepreneurs.com. If that information, there's a whole page of information about the mastermind program. If it looks interesting to you, then I encourage you to submit an application. That's the only way we'll know that you're interested and the only way that we'll follow up and share those details and invite you to join us. So you can find also the links to the workshop that I talked about and also the mastermind group program in the description for this episode. So whatever app you're listening to, look in the description and you'll also find the links to the mastermind program and the workshop that's coming up. All right, everyone. Until next time, have a fantastic rest of your day. Thank you for listening. Visit publichealthentrepreneurs.com to learn more.